She stood on my front porch with a key in her hand like it was Excalibur, jamming it into my lock again and again until it finally snapped right in half, this sharp metallic crack echoing up my chest like a warning bell. And before I could even process what was happening, she was already on her phone dialing 911 and screaming across the yard for everyone to hear that I was trespassing in my own house. Yeah, you heard that right. That was the moment my peaceful Tuesday morning spun straight into a property war, and suddenly I was the villain, the one the neighborhood was about to watch get hauled away in handcuffs. Let me back up a sec. 8 months before I'd signed the paperwork on this house, watched the moving truck lumber away, promising myself no one would ever get to control my space again. Divorce had already chewed me up and spat me out, left me half a person, and this place was supposed to be my sanctuary, my clean slate. But now, here came Linda Matthews, strutting up my driveway in a power suit clipboard tucked under one arm, keys jangling like she owned the whole world. She introduced herself as the president of the Pinehurst HOA, which, let's be clear, would have sounded impressive if my house was actually in Pinehurst. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Every document I owned said I was free and clear, but Linda didn't care. She shoved that key into my lock with the confidence of a woman who thinks if she twists hard enough, reality itself will just bend to her will. 5 tries later, the key snapped and clattered onto my porch, and Linda spun around, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You have no legal right to live here." Then, just like that, she's dialing 911, all dramatic, like she's catching me in the middle of an armed robbery. I was standing there in my pajamas, coffee in hand, wondering if I'd accidentally walked onto the set of some bizarre HOA reality show. The neighbors trickled out like it was free theater. Margaret, the neighborhood gossip, with her phone out filming. Dave, the engineer, squinting at my door like he was about to troubleshoot the lock. Lisa, the single mom, clutching her kid as if I'd suddenly turned into a criminal. I wanted to shout, but instead I asked Linda cool as I could manage to show me her documents. For 2 seconds, I swear her mask slipped, and all I saw was rage. Pure, bitter rage, not HOA authority. She hissed, "I used to own this house, and I'm taking it back." My stomach dropped right through the floor. 2 days later, the first letter arrived. Official, looking with HOA letterhead. Bold red letters shouting about violations. My grass too tall by 1/10 of an inch, mailbox leaning 3 degrees, seasonal decor even though I didn't own a single pumpkin or plastic reindeer. 23 violations in total, $8,000 in fines, and the cherry on top, immediate compliance required. I laughed until I found myself up at 2 in the morning reading the whole thing, wondering if maybe, just maybe, I really had broken rules I never agreed to. That's what Linda did. She gaslighted you with so much fake authority that you started doubting your own memory, your own math. I sat with all my purchase documents spread out like a fortress, whispering to myself that it was legal notarized mine. But the more I said it, the less I believed it. Divorce had left me raw, too used to being told I was wrong, and Linda's relentless confidence pressed on that bruise until I thought about just packing up and disappearing, let her win just so I could breathe again. And that's when Ted Hughes walked in. My neighbor, 67, built like a retired linebacker, carrying a manila folder so thick it looked like a phone book. Ted had been a public defender for decades, and when he saw Linda's little performance on my porch, something in his eyes told me he'd been waiting for this rematch. He sat at my kitchen table, spread out his own stack of documents, and told me how Linda had tried the exact same scam on him 2 years earlier while his wife was dying of cancer, no less. Fake fines, bogus notices, harassment over rose bushes his wife had planted for their anniversary. Ted choked up as he told me his wife spent her last months worrying about legal bills that never even existed. Linda had only stopped when Ted threatened to report her to the state bar, but by then the damage was done. His wife died carrying that stress. That story lit something inside me. Ted didn't just have stories. He had evidence, copies of suspended real estate licenses, ethics, violations, complaints, buried under bureaucratic delays. Linda wasn't just a petty tyrant with a clipboard, she was a predator. Together, we decided to fight. I started tracking every fake citation, every phony 911 call, using every bit of my programmer brain. Ted dug through archives older than me, and what we found was a pattern, a sick little algorithm. Linda targeted the vulnerable widows, divorcees, anyone too tired or heartbroken to fight back. She'd fabricate HOA authority where none existed, pile on fake fines, and pressure people to sell cheap, then swoop in, flip the house, and pocket the profit. Suburban predator in wedge heels if you want the picture. Her campaign against me ramped up. Flyers under doors warning about the dangerous newcomer, Facebook groups suddenly full of rants about me destroying community values. Neighbors crossed the street when I checked the mail. Lisa wouldn't let her kid walk near my driveway. Headlights would idle outside my house late at night. Linda sitting in her car phone aimed at my front door. I spiraled. My work started slipping, missed deadlines, lost clients. My brother called just to check in, said I sounded like I did after the divorce. And I wasn't okay. I felt like I was living in a cage built from someone else's lies. Then came the showdown. One Friday evening, Linda rolls up with a locksmith waving what looked like legal documents, a crowd of neighbors behind her. She announced for everyone to hear that she was calling 911 to report me as a violent trespasser. And she did. Her performance was Oscar-worthy, breathless, trembling voice, describing me as an aggressive male threatening an elderly community leader. She played the victim so well, even Margaret teared up. But I had my own call to make. I dialed the non-emergency line and prayed. My old college friend Maria Lopez was on shift when her voice came through dispatch. "This is Maria?" I almost cried. I blurted out everything, sent her my purchase docs, surveys, video clips of Linda stalking my porch. Maria told me, "Send it. I'll attach it to the file." 6 minutes later, Officer Daniels pulled up, took one look at Linda waving her broken key, one look at my mountain of documents, and asked the magic question. "Ma'am, what's your court order number?" Silence. Linda tried to bluff, but it all collapsed. "Without a judge's order, this locksmith isn't touching that door," he said. The crowd shifted, phones were still recording, but now they were pointed at Linda as her mask slipped. Margaret started asking real questions. Dave took a look at my deed. Lisa stepped closer. Right there on my porch, the tide turned. Linda's voice got shrill. Her hands flailed, but it didn't matter. She stormed off, humiliated, but I knew she wasn't done. That night, Ted found an old business card. Linda had dropped different company name, license number that didn't even exist. His hand shook as he called an old colleague at the state office. The next day, we learned the FBI had already been building a case. Linda had been running the same scam across 3 states for 15 years. Fake HOAs, forged documents, over $300,000 stolen. Thanks to her key-breaking stunt, they finally had her cornered. But Linda tried one last attack. She hired a real attorney, slapped me with harassment and defamation suits, flipped the story to paint herself as my victim. The court issued a temporary restraining order. My work tanked, my credit cards maxed, and for the first time I started packing boxes, convinced I'd lose my home. Sitting in the middle of the living room, surrounded by cardboard, I broke down in ugly, choking sobs. I was ready to quit. But then Maria called again, sounding almost cheerful, and told me Linda had just called 911 that morning to report a robbery at a different address than the one she'd sworn under oath was her residence. Fraud, perjury, caught red-handed. That spark in my chest came back. I wasn't crazy, she was, and now we had her. Ted filed an emergency motion from his hospital bed, connecting the dots between all her fake addresses, filings, and surveys. The hearing was packed. Neighbors, reporters, even city officials crammed in. Linda strutted in like she still owned the place, but when the clerk confirmed her surveyor's license was suspended, and when Maria's 911 logs showed she'd claimed residence at 3 different houses, the judge's face went ice cold. Linda tried to spin it, ranted about protecting property values, but her words just dissolved into screams. Mascara running facade crumbling, and then the snap of handcuffs closing around her wrists, FBI agents waiting in the back. Mail fraud, wire fraud, elder abuse, the charges rolled out like a grocery list from hell. They led her away, still shrieking as everyone stared. My lien was lifted, my name cleared, my home safe again. I didn't celebrate. I just stood there breathing for the first time in months, watching the woman who tried to steal my life lose everything instead. That broken key, still sealed in an evidence bag, became the perfect symbol of her downfall. Her fake authority shattered at my door. And if I learned anything from all this, it's that fake power always breaks under real scrutiny. That's why I'm telling my story now, because justice doesn't always show up in a badge or a courtroom. Sometimes it's just a stubborn neighbor, a good friend, and the truth finally coming out. So what would you have done? Would you have run or would you have fought back? Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk about justice, about right and wrong, about standing your ground. And if you've ever faced someone like Linda, let's hear how you turn the tables.